So,
Yeah,
all right, man. Well, listen, Benjamin, I've given you zero briefing. For our listeners, I'll give you some context. Benjamin and I connected about a year ago, and you're based in Australia, so totally opposite ends of the world. You got to tell our listeners what time it is where you are right now. Australia is easier than Singapore, by the way. But yeah, man, I reached out to him about a week ago, listeners, and I'm like, Benjamin, things look like they're going really well. Come talk to our audience ASAP. And so I guess, Benjamin, you want to start with just like an overview of everything you've been doing the past, man, 5 years and where you're located. And I'm just pumped to learn, to reconnect and see how everything's going.
thanks, Matt, for actually reaching out. And yeah, it's 11 in the night, in Melbourne, and we're in autumn season, a bit colder, starting to get cold. Anyways, for folks who are listening this, my name is Benjamin. I run a fintech company called MyGigsters. A really passionate group trying to bring some financial security to the future of work. And the way we do it is we work with the platforms and marketplaces that they're already engaged with. And we help these marketplaces provide financial services to these independent workforce globally. So it's based in Melbourne and currently serving for 4 countries. So pretty exciting times.
So Benjamin, how do you balance your sleep and your even like cultural competency, right? Because that's one thing you and I immediately got along with is we're like, damn, we live in different countries, and we're operating totally across the globe. How the hell do you manage it besides just being perpetually tired, but you're still smiling all the time? So you're doing well.
I think thanks to a lot of AI these days, you get to do most of your work. But one thing, uh, there's a saying that you actually work when you don't work for money. So what that means is, of course, startup life, can't complain. I sometimes work, double hours, but it's fun. It's fun because it's exciting. We know you're solving a problem, so it keeps us the mood up and keeps us keep going. But yeah, other than that, I've got 2 kids. So I'm a young dad with 2 kids and a startup. So my life is a mess most of the time, but I still keep going.
Kids again.
I've got 7 and 4.
So, and then I'll ask you as an entrepreneur, how is it having kids and building a multi-continent global startup? How the hell do you balance that?
I actually think it's actually productive. So because you now really manage your time really well. If I didn't have kids and I was still a young, hustling founder, I probably would have been distracted too many times, and I have been in the past. But I know I've got some balance to work on, and so I'd say no quickly. I have very clear intentions of what I want and why I want, and it comes because I've got other things that I equally consider important, and I support that, right? The other thing is kids do bring some level of spontaneity into your life, and it allows you to just think differently. Um, so I was giving a little give a joke, right? So I've got this agentic workforce that I've been building, and I've been using it for myself. And my chief of staff, her name is Lucy. So my daughter has been having a chat with Lucy these days, and she's, she's a bot. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, she is the agentic generation, right? So she's obviously AI native. So she's like, oh, my dad has got this bot that he chats to, and it does the work for my dad. And uh, so yeah,
Okay.
interesting.
So let's hit the head on this. So the fun part is, so you and I are two founders. So we have in the realm of risk, we don't have that much, meaning that, okay, like we can take a lot of bold moves, right? We can have a lot of stuff that kind of breaks. It can't break that much in production, right? So like we're not like totally, riskless. But when we look at AI, I'll give you sort of my experience with this has been probably 6 months ago, I'd be like, like I don't see how it's that much different, right? Because especially I started in Silicon Valley and early, and so neural networks, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, all this stuff. It was like impressive, but it hadn't really, revolutionized. Now, 6 months ago, this is when all of a sudden that the flip happened, right? And it's like, holy crap, there's no going back from this. It kind of feels like this is brand new. Now, with us, we would not exist as we do today without just basic Claude code, right? And if we want to get really geeky, like if you look at what is human cloud in the back end, like it's Supabase, it's Vercel, it's ingest, it's all these things that just didn't exist 5 years ago. Now, also with that said, exactly your point. So yesterday I was doing taxes and I was communicating with my CFO bot, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
holy crap, like this is a brand new paradigm. And then coming back to your daughter, this is where I akin it to when I was in like high school, we would have to go to the library to learn how to cite and find information. And I remember we're all just like, why the hell are we doing this? Like, we can just pull up a computer and just search it and it's immediate. But there was that generational disconnect, right? Between like, whoa, like, why would you? So you're seeing it at a generational level. You're also seeing it at a just startup level. But what has been like, what are you doing with AI? Is it taking over everything? Like, yeah, let's hit on this.
I think you kind of highlighted the point, right? As early stage, as startup founders, you are always, scarce of time and you got a lot of things to do and you probably don't have all the money in the world to do it either. Um, and I'm no different. So MyGigsters is still an early stage startup and founder-led team. So for me, honestly, 6 months ago, I was just drowning with all the work and trying to scale companies, travel across the world, meet clients. I didn't have enough time to do all of this, nor I had the quality of work that I was producing with the time that I had with lots of these things. The option could be is go higher and get more people in, but that wasn't the world right now, and there's a lot more different future of work options. So for me, I choose to get on outside just chat GPT and just chatting to, hey, why don't I begin with some agentic workforce? Let's try something out. And that's how it started, and it's been 4 or 5 months now, and I've got essentially a small team that basically does my sales, marketing, and all the business ops, product backlogging and stuff like that. It allows me to actually do much more and save a lot of time and actually do much more. But I think what I'm also starting to realize as a founder is an individual is still required in the equation, that the human is still required, and there's a lot of an expertise. If you know what you want and if you're able to articulate that really well, and if you've got an deep understanding of what the requirements are, you have a better outcome with these tools, as opposed to just chat GPT, it's just chatting. But I see a world, and I've been talking about this recently with my peers. I see a world where earlier you would have a team with 5 people doing things. Now you might have a team with 1 person, an agentic workforce with them doing the same thing that what 5 people would do. And suddenly that 1 person is required to be like a master of all trades, and also have a deep understanding of the business requirement or the customer requirement and be able to articulate that really well. So I'm excited about what's happening right now, just helping me, but also just changing the way workforce is actually consumed. in many ways. So yeah, well, AI not going anywhere.
And what, Benjamin, so what are you, so this is what I find so fascinating. Or actually, I'll give you one of my most controversial, well, not controversial. We're talking about tech, right? Like it's not controversial. It's just nerdy. But so one of the things that we hear right now is we're like, hey, like the agentic workforce, right? And we keep hearing like, what agents are you using? One of my views on this, to be honest, is I actually don't think there's going to be a million agents. And there might be, but I don't think that you and I are going to be wrangling like hundreds of agents. Part of me just thinks that it's going to come back to the core infrastructure, which is going to be like back end, and it's going to be cron jobs, and it's going to be, email. And a lot of this stuff is not going to be like a million agents. It's still going to be like core foundation. And part of me thinks that Claude Code will just do it all. Or if it's ChatGPT, right? Like, I don't think there's going to be that many agents. But to your point, the individuals that are owning the actual agents, this is where I'm like, this is a fundamentally different world. And I think for you and I as founders, what we struggle with is we don't have as much cash or time, right, as the big guys. And I can tell you the easiest job I ever had was when I was a founder, not a founder, but when I was a PM at Microsoft building a new product because I had the money, right? And at the
Yeah.
time, I was hiring like, up to 30 freelancers at a time. And I thought I was rich in cash because I was able to spend like 10 to 30 a month on freelancers. And it was magical, right? But as we kind of build out, like, okay, what does this look like? Part of me, to hit on your point, still thinks it looks like you need the best individuals working on your team. The difference is these individuals now are actually like 100x. And I don't know, it's just this world of more and more and more. But so what are you using? Are you using, Claude yourself or using OpenAI? What's sort of your stack?
Um, all of the above. um,
Yeah, okay, cool.
actually, so I am for my team and internally, we use a lot of Cloud Code within the team and Cloud Code work. But I've been setting up my own agentic workforce. Initially I had on Lang, now on OpenClaw. And now that after been working with my team and basically learning a lot on how to make it more consistent and more efficient and more productive, we've now translated that structure into a hosted environment for the team. So now the team has their own small agentic workforce. A designer could have a couple of agents, like sub agents, could do like UX research and front end design review and design copy review, things like that. That would take, you know instead of starting from zero, now they've got a base plate to start with. Think about that. So we started to work on that. But for work purposes, mostly for the team, they use Claude a lot. But me wanting to break a lot of things, I put my team on OpenClaw, which sits on a Mac Mini and runs it. But in the last few months, we've migrated that structure into a cloud environment, and it's now contained, and the team gets to use it. So, I don't know. Hopefully, in the next 6 to 12 months, I believe the validation that I'm looking for is the same thing that I just said. Like, what if each team member has some agentic workforce that they can tap into, that they can use to do certain activities to make their job more easier, and those agents could be in sandboxed, they could have their own memory, they could have tools restricted, and they all collectively can learn and share, very much like a team. And that's how my current agentic setup is also set up. They're all sandboxed, and they've got their memory structures and stuff. Yeah, it would be interesting to see how that actually, I'm too early. It will be interesting to see how that actually pans out from a business impact perspective.
Yeah. And what use cases have you seen work best? And all is a good answer. So for example, like this podcast, 6 months ago, we would have said, oh, like it'd be tough to automate, right? So it'd be like, well, what do you automate? The scheduling? All right, Calendly. All right, what do you automate? The follow up? Well, how do you know? Now it's all automated, Benjamin. So you're gonna get, like, after this episode, you will get an email that's, not gonna lie, it's automated. Then, a week before your episode, an email, and then email, and everything from the graphics to the content creation to the 6 to 12 highlight videos, like it's all automated. So that's one use case in us that I'm like, holy crap. Another one is all of our newsletters. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they each have, different formats and skeletons, but they're all automated. So with us, like it's mostly been a question of, do you have the time to build it out? Which time usually means like one day, right? Like you can pretty much build anything out in a day. But so for you, what use cases have you guys seen really, really work?
Um, three use cases has like tops the list. Number one has been sales and outreach. I'm in B2B sales. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time and a lot of outreach and prospecting to just find the right customers, and be able to, build that relationships and warm them up and to be able to pitch and get to a point in, the journey. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I have an agent and a small team that actually does the prospecting part of the journey. It goes out, it knows my ICP, it knows exactly who needs to look for. It finds the person, verifies the business, verifies that they have the right ICP. Sometimes they go deeper and check for the last LinkedIn post they made. Have they shared this pain or this challenge or experience? And basically does the prospecting really well and brings that prospect right into the CRM, which the agents have built, and sends me a notification. Hey, Benji, I went and looked around. I found 3 prospects really good. They are in ICP 1 and 2. And one is actually warmer because he's been asking for this service. And adds it to my task list. I say, this is what you need to do. Go connect with this founder on LinkedIn. Here's the LinkedIn URL along with the, what should I say? It could say, hey, Matt, I saw your post about future of work. Pretty interesting. Here are my thoughts and I'd love to connect with you. It does that part and I take over. Obviously, I don't want the AI to do the outreach too, because I feel like I wanted to still be the human. But we've actually, my agent Scott, he's been doing really fantastic, and he's probably adding at least 3 or 4 qualified leads every day, which into my performance would have been, I would have done maybe 5 or 10 every week, like good qualified leads, like heavily researched, verified, and got enough information for me to reach out. Scott does it pretty much. Yeah, he adds a couple every night, and it also gives me good confidence to pursue those leads. So sales, SDR, this is the classic SDR. So that's a big value for us because the world that we are in. The number 2 is I've got a chief of staff, kind of a role within the agentic team. So our agentic workforce is built on the hub and spoke model. So hub is where the chief of staff sits, and the spokes are all the sub agents. So they all talk to the chief of staff who talks to me. But the chief of staff is almost like my chief of staff. So it's very handy for me to assess information on the fly. So I'll give you an example, right? I was in this meeting with the customer and I was presenting my commercials, and the customer said, oh, so I like it, Benji. How much would it cost me on a monthly basis? We are a fintech company, so we've got a lot of line items of cost, right? So we've got payment charges. And I should have been prepared with an estimate for him. but I didn't. So I was on the meeting. I asked him, so what's your estimate look like? How much volume of transaction are you going to do? How many workers are you going to pay? What type of payments are you going to do? I collected that information on the call. I fed it to Lucy, and I was like, Lucy, can you calculate the cost of the service and an ROI of the cost? And while I was chatting, Lucy did the math because she knew all the calculations. She knew the context really well. And in about a minute, it presented me the cost and the ROI in a really nice format. So I just had to open the screen and share it. Hey, by the way, we happen to run it for you, and here is how it looks. I wouldn't have, like, for me, that would have been, let me get back to you kind of exercise. But that's one example where you get this access to information, but also making sure it's reasoned to you quickly when you need it. So I've seen a big value in that. The number 3 is engineering acceleration. I call this as the engineering acceleration. So I still got some fantastic engineers, right? And they do amazing work. But they're not too happy writing engineering documentation or writing test cases and reviewing the code and that things. They're not too excited. They love to get their hands on and build things. But as a company, we have a process in place and we have to maintain things. So I've got a few agents that actually work alongside them in their own environment, like Jira, for example. But actually accelerates the process of engineering. So an example could be when the product issue is being created, we have an agent that reads it, understands the business context, looks at the customer notes, pairs a good plan of development along with all the dependencies that need it. When that is ready, the tester agent would come, look at that and write test cases for the development and give it to the engineer for the next step. And let's say the engineer does it and comes back, and the agent will now review the code, do a small test, and give it to the security assessor, and he does the security check and then gives it back to the engineer. Now, the engineer obviously gets the final say, so they do have to do their due diligence, make sure the code is neat and it does work, and then pushes it to production or development, whatever. But what we felt is just by adding a few, minions in the process, the speed accelerates. We are able to produce a lot more good quality work, without having to stress out and stretch the engineers' mindset. And one thing that engineers are not great with is context switching. So this restricts that to a level or reduces that to a level. So yeah, sales, operations, and product development.
Yeah. So the full loop, and this is where so the SDR front, you're definitely ahead of where we are, but directionally same thing from what we've seen. On the operations front, this is also where, this one you're way ahead of where we are. But with that said, we see it at the individual level. And then the engineering one is where we've seen by far the highest leaps and bounds. And I think most people have. One of the big, like, this seems like magic moments is when, in our case, so we have, I think it's 3. And this is where it's tough to distinguish between, like, is this a skill versus an agent, right? Because they're kind of the same things. But so we have a audit skill, which is literally it goes through and it has like 6 different simulations. One of the simulations is called grandma mode. Grandma mode is just like you are a grandma, right? That doesn't even know how to turn a computer on. But what's nuts is, so, you'll spend, let's say, 30 minutes to 2 hours working with Claude on the strategy. So it'll go and it'll research absolutely everything, right? And it'll be like, okay, like here's the best in class solution. Then you'll say, okay, here's the strategy doc, here's the implementation plan. For you listeners out there, one thing to know is, and this is, you've probably experienced, Benji, is like these models are very lazy. So like take the worst of humans, like models still have that, right? And so you expect that, okay, there's these 100 things and the agent is going to go one by one and do absolutely every one of these 100. No, 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 no. The agent's going to do like 79 and it's going to do whatever it thinks like the quickest and least processing power to get it done. So then I will say it's kind of coming back to like management, Benji, where it's like, all right, so now what skill did you create to watch over the agent to make sure it wasn't lazy? But so that's where for us, the audit skill that we've created is like, oh my God, does this leaps and bounds, just our ability to ship. And then our PR prep. I mean, those two things brought our effectiveness and code quality and everything. It was just like, this is insane. Now, part of what I wonder, Benji, and this is where you have such a really cool kind of visibility into this. Okay, so we're geeking out over agents right now, but you and I both make our money by humans having jobs. Right? So
Yes.
as much as we want to fall in love with agents, okay, you and I kind of need humans to stay around, right? With that said, I think you and I both fervently believe in humans, but what I'll come out and say is I think there's a massive reset happening in terms of, the 100 jobs today. We probably don't need like 99 of them, but then those people are going to be having to do more high value stuff. And so from your lens, you see your own team, you see the talent marketplaces. What do you see? What are you seeing the impact of AI doing? Is it just gutting parts of the workforce? Is it gutting certain marketplaces? Is it making certain marketplaces better? But I know it's a really open question and we'll probably figure out sub questions for it. But what are you seeing the impact of AI across, talent marketplaces?
Um, on the bad side, let's start with that. Uh, some marketplaces are taking a hit mainly because the work that they were offering in the marketplace have been now predominantly pushed to AI and agentic workforce. For example, offshore bookkeeping, virtual assistant, social media, copywriter. Um, I can't say it's completely gone, but it has taken a significant damage based on people's adoption to agentic work, and not just agentic, just AI in general. And there's humpty number of tools out there that enables people to go do this. So that's something that we are seeing. But on the other side, knowledge-based workers, SMEs, subject matter experts who have, fractional leaders and consultants, and these people who have got the experience of doing it in the non-AI way have actually brought more value into this world because they see, as I told you earlier, I don't think the problem here is will the agentic or the AI will do it for you. The models out there are pretty good, but it comes to the person who's orchestrating these models and asking it and managing it. So it comes to that, boils down to experience, clarity, and attention to detail, critical thinking, and ability to get that out. So we see those marketplaces are getting much more fractional leaders, independent consultants on a specific domain, maybe financial sector. Or another thing that we are finding a lot these days is healthcare marketplaces. A sudden boom in healthcare marketplaces, locums and doctors and nurses and pharmacists. We're seeing that surge. Obviously, tradie marketplaces, because those folks can't get replaced with AI. So that's marketplaces are definitely on the rise. But we're also seeing an interesting merge. With the marketplaces that we are supporting, there are, at least, especially in the knowledge-based sector, there are two types of contracts being pushed a lot. One, AI enablers. They are looking for people out there, independent talent, who can come into the organization, but bring in AI enablement into the business. Because they don't have the talent, they're looking at others to bring in, almost like, come as a freelancer consultant, help us adopt AI. So there's a lot of those kind of work, AI engineers, AI solution architects, AI native builders, and they're inviting those AI friendly consultants in. The second thing that we are finding is companies are now actually testing and validating the concept of what if I just have one independent consultant and a bunch of tools instead of having a team of 15. And suddenly they're realizing, companies realizing, hey, you know what, I'm spending 70% of that cost, maybe 30% less. I'm still getting 100% value or probably more. And it's on demand. It's global. It's anytime, anywhere. It's the nirvana of finding workforce. So that coupled with these tools are actually accelerating. So it'll be really, I believe, if you look at Upwork or Freelancer, all of these mid-tier, what I call the mid-tier because they don't specifically provide high quality talent all the time. So they're the kind of the large mid-tier platforms. They're also bringing a lot more AI into the platform, either for them. But one thing, Matt, is actually very interesting, and I've been contemplating this in the last couple of weeks, is I feel these consultants will start to do more because they, if why would you go to a platform? For a couple of reasons: to find a job for you, to be able to process your project, to help you collect payments, to be that trusted node between them and the customer, and then be a part of a community. And that's what most talents would come and join a talent pool, right? If the marketplace doesn't adopt and provide AI tools to these consultants, and they will figure this out, what will happen is they will like, why would I need to be part of your platform if I could do this myself? Reaching out to clients, yeah, I've got an agent to do that. Creating a SOW, I've got an agent to do that. So suddenly you're looking at this one person marketplace or one person agency. So it's a very, very interesting dynamics there. So I feel the platforms will have to adopt and look at how do they enable workers to have it within their ecosystem so that they can do more within them. Yeah, but interesting.
Yeah, I want to double click on that. So, because this is where, our fervent belief is, and dude, as founders, we always know there's like these beliefs that we're okay with going bankrupt from just because we're like, we have to put a stake in the ground, right? So one of my like spikes that might, I'm okay with going bankrupt from is I do believe there will always be a place for the middle layer. Now, the middle layer historically has been, and I would even go as abstract to say it's historically been HR and procurement, but then it's historically been staffing firms and professional service firms. And then under that professional service, you have the agencies, the consultancies, you name it. Now, I think if we look at the sort of what's the purpose of them, that's where I'd be terrified. So the idea of like manual recruiters, generalized expertise, and predominantly long-term, full-time, where you get a big placement fee, that one I would not want to be in, right? So like that one doesn't really make sense to me right now. But with that said, the more flexible talent platforms that own the sourcing and the scoping and potentially the management, and not meaning they're actually managing these people, but meaning they take ownership over the outcomes of that. I don't see that stopping, right? And even if AI can take over everything, it can, be an AI SDR, handle the bookkeeping, you name it. I still can't imagine a world where us as individuals don't benefit from sort of that platform. And likewise, the companies never want to contract directly with 1,000+ individuals, right? And so as long as there is a government, I can't imagine I can't imagine taking away the middle layer. Now, here's where I think is most terrifying in what you're saying is I think that there's been these norms that it's just going to be really painful to break through. And one example I'll give of that is especially in full-time employment, but also as a contractor, freelancer, consultant, like this is true to everyone. But what's most terrifying about AI is that it can directly replace what someone's been used to doing. And so I'll give an example. Let's say that someone is used to having a marketing agency. And part of that marketing agency is, hey, it costs, 5 to 10,000 a month. And that's 5 to 10,000 a month is going to get you 4 podcast episodes, X number of social posts. Okay, well, what happens when you can replace that overnight? Does the marketing agency tell you that, hey, by the way, like you don't need us anymore and you need us on this thing? Like, and I think this is where if you look at if we look at the 15-person team, if you have a 15-person team of all full-time employees, their incentive is not necessarily what's best for you as the founder and as the executive. Their incentive is to stay with that job, and that's not their fault necessarily. But all of a sudden, if there's a tool that can replace 99% of what they do you believe that they're actually going to tell you that and do that? And this is where we get this like crazy, to me, I don't know, just problem. Now, our world, right? The flexible workforce of freelancers, this is where it's a lot easier because the reality is, hey, we need to drive marketing results. If you don't automate this in the next month, well, it's no risk, no harm, no foul. We're going to stop the engagement. So the incentives are best aligned. But oh my God, Benjamin, there's going to be a lot of pain. This is where I see most of the pain is like safe, stable jobs. Unless you are in healthcare or something with your hands. Good luck.
Okay,
Good luck.
you're right. Um, it is turning outcome driven already, right? It's not just because of AI. It has been happening post pandemic. We've been seeing that shift in the way work is being defined, and suddenly the pandemic told us, oh, you could work from anywhere and anytime to anyone, and that kind of gave us this new world paradigm of work itself. I could be sitting here and working for, I don't know, a person anywhere in the world. But then work is not time bound. Work is not a space bound exercise. Work, it's an outcome driven exercise. And that now with AI, it's just added more to that argument, saying that it doesn't matter how much you do, it's about how much impact it has come to business. So, and traditionally, even before AI, independent contractors were hired for that reason. They were not hired to move things. They were hired to make impact and actual outcomes in the now. It's now independent consultants. I know pretty much 9 out of 10 in the community. They all work with that mindset. They come on a project. They know clearly what the outcomes are, and they are driven towards the outcome. They so this paradigm is going to happen more where companies are going to force talent for outcome. And if talents are not keeping up with that, and they're going to like, oh, I've got this safe 9 to 5 job, it's not safe anymore. I don't know if you read this news. It was just last week, I think. Oracle just one day morning decided to let go 3,000 people on a small email.
Sam.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mate. This is the last day. But hey, look, I know it's not fun for a lot of people out there who are probably listening to this. And unfortunately, that's the reality that we are in. Are taking significant drastic moves in order to not cut corners. They are building for the future. You always build for the future. Workforce has to change, has to think differently. Yeah. We are in the
There's
right
no
business,
way.
though.
There's no way. And the last thing I'll say on this is Benji, have you had to like actually as a founder, have you had to like apply for a job in the last 10 years? Like if you had to go through that resume to interview loop in the last 10 years? So I'll give you a little quick stories. When my last company, when we were selling, selling my last like venture back startup, and I was evaluating, right? I was like, okay, like, we have a couple acquisition paths here and maybe so I went on like I think I went on like 2 job interviews. And I even like I actually kind of used AI at the time for the resume. But so I went on like 2 job interviews, and it was more like companies. I'm like, I've always wanted to work for them. Let's see whatever. But long story short, I remember meeting with, I think it was the CMO, and I knew that like 5 minutes into the interview, I was like, oh yeah, this is not going well. And I couldn't really put a pin on it, but what I realized like a week later is I was like, if I was the CMO, would I really want to hire someone who comes in and promises that they're going to be able to radically transform the marketing department and the product department? And I thought to myself, who the hell would want to bring someone like me on to do that? Because I would get rid of their job, right? That would be like what they'd be scared of. And it's totally, I mean, to be honest, it's totally what probably would have happened, because as founders, you and I, all we care about is, all right, we need to drive up the CAC to LTV ratio, drive up MRR and ARR. That's what we're trained to do. But that's terrifying. And so I think every job now is having that reckoning though. And we do a lot of work in basically like helping companies not be too scared of it, but also like identify ahead of time. And so let's say, a CMO says, hey, marketing department, we need to go hire, 10 independent contractors. There's going to be a lot of pushback from especially the middle management, that they're going to say like, yes, we're on board with this. Oh, hell no, they're not on board with this. And they're going to try their hardest to block it, because their job's going to be up, their jobs will be up. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of this, especially over the next couple of years. Now, I wonder, Benji, sort of as we kind of run out of time, what the most important question for our listeners is, where can they find you? But then also, what is that one thing, Benji, that you want our listeners, and our listeners are the ones, they're hiring independent talent, they're building out the freelance platforms of the future. What do you want them to know, and where can they find you?
Oh, thanks. So people can find me at mygigsters.com.au, which is mygigsters.com.au, or Benjamin, and LinkedIn. You'll find me. I'm pretty much there every day. But I think what we wanted to, if you are into building an amazing marketplace for the future of work, and if you're going through growing and scaling that marketplace, you need the right partners for onboarding, verifying, compliance, and payments. And you need to make that marketplace not just as a job board, but more than that, a home for all your freelancers to feel financially secure, empowered, and enabled. I'm not sure this is a lot for you to do by your own. That's why when you call us, because we do that for you, and your freelancers get to be happy. But yeah, thanks for that. I do have to mention this, Matthew, that I think when humans are being enabled with AI, the positive side of all of this would be, we talk about in the startup world the revenue per employee metric, right? I have a feeling that many of these organizations will benefit from that metric, like startups for us, for example. So the bright side is, don't be scared. If you are using AI and you make more money for the business, means more money for you. Hopefully you're working for the right business. Overall, it's a good thesis at the end of the day, where each one gets to earn more by pretty much doing the same work, but with a lot more AI and a lot more enablement. So interesting world.
Well, Benji, you just so the title of this episode will be something now around revenue per employee, because that I don't know if you saw last week, Andreessen came out with theirs, and it was like a 3x improvement. And it was, the positive side is, oh my God, right? Revenue per employee. The scary side was, holy crap, if you don't have a 3x revenue per employee, good luck. Good luck. Get those that do, right? So on that note, Benji, listen, first of many, thanks for hopping on. Listeners, go reach out to him ASAP. If you're in Australia, go reach out to him especially. Benji, thanks for hopping on, bud.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.